This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast where you get to hear therapists and healers get vulnerable and real about our own growth and healing. I'm your host, Annie Schuessler, a healer and former therapist. My favorite kind of practitioner is the kind that wouldn't ask their client to do anything they wouldn't do themselves. Today we're going to talk with a well-known couples therapist, so it's particularly juicy and important that we're going to talk about the struggles that she faced in her own marriage and how she and her husband worked through those struggles in couples therapy. Tonya Lester, LCSW, is the author of Pushback: Live, Love, and Work with Others Without Losing Yourself. And she's a Brooklyn-based psychotherapist and writer. Her essay, Couples Therapist, Heal Thyself, was published in the Modern Love column in the New York Times, and she's been writing the popular Staying Sane Inside Insanity blog for Psychology Today since 2020. All right, here we go. So, welcome, Tonya. I'm so excited to jump in with you.
Thanks, Annie. I'm so happy to be here. It's a treat.
Yeah, I took your quiz, and I am difficult. I found in the category of people who are willing to be difficult. And I was able, in reading your whole book, I was also able to see all these times when I'm not willing to stay difficult.
Okay, yeah.
In that whole, set a boundary, maintain a boundary, and then, stay with it even when it's making people like you less, or it's, having...
Or it's challenged over and over.
Yeah. And it's stirring up all those childhood wounds of worthiness and stuff. So so I say that to say for me, and I imagine for you as a badass person, it's still hard. The stuff that, that's why you wrote a book about it. It's to help us through it. So you're going to share with us about your own journey as a client in couples therapy. Yeah?
Yeah, and maybe a little bit about how we ended up there. Because I was a couples therapist for a long time, and very busy couples therapist, writing about couples therapy, supervising couples therapists before I ever went to couples therapy. I had been in individual therapy. And so being on the other side was very eye-opening, as you'd imagine.
Yeah. How come you hadn't been to couples therapy before? Was it your marriage was generally doing pretty well, or what do you think made you not go to couples therapy before?
We had, I would say, a really good marriage, on paper, or certainly, I'm sure, our friends. And before I kind of blew the lid off of everything by writing a piece about it in the New York Times. But I think people would have seen us as we're very affectionate always, that never stopped. We're very aligned with how we are with our kids. He is very smart to me and interesting to me. He's very sexy to me, which I feel is not everybody has that 26 years into the marriage, So I feel we have our strengths are really, really strong. And then, I feel I kind of aligned myself, and the couples therapist said this to me. I kind of put myself in a one down position, and even you saying you're a badass, and me professionally.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty direct, and I don't mind speaking up. But I was just not operating that way in my marriage. And I think there's a million reasons in my upbringing about why that would have been true. But I really was a helpmate to him. I think I very much put his career first and his preferences first. And he has a very strong personality. And I just felt he wouldn't be able to handle my real self, or how I really felt about things. So I was pretty pretty quiet, and then a little sneaky, actually, really just doing whatever I wanted, but separate, and him not really knowing it, and then suddenly feeling really oh, I am not known. He doesn't even know who I am. But I just thought that if I was worried, I think everyone worries, you go to couples therapy. Couples therapy is so scary. I tell couples all the time, like, couples therapy is scary. Individual therapy, warm bath, and it's comparatively, and hopefully your individual therapist is challenging you, but a lot aren't, right? So it's kind of only
Mhm.
validation. Couples therapy is not like that. Even, you're both sitting there, so everything's going to come out, their perspective, the kind of two truths. And I just, that felt intolerable to me. I felt like it would be so upsetting for him, and it was just sort of easier for me to just kind of suck it up.
It would be so upsetting for him, like, to hear all of your truth.
Yeah, I mean, to really hear how unhappy I was. And a major
Mhm.
problem, I think, for us, and this is something we joke about now a little bit. It has a little bit of an edge as a joke, but I feel like I was kind of the perfect wife to him
Uh-huh.
for
Uh-huh.
like 23 years. Like,
Mm.
really, I can talk about lots of things. I'm a very good cook. I like to host. I did most of the parenting. I, I always deferred like to any of his kind of professional needs. And then as I got, as I went, I wasn't a therapist when we met, and then I went back to school. And then, so then I was even like making money, I was like really offering a lot, right? So as, as well as being this kind of like this sort of, I mean, I'm sure I wasn't the perfect wife, but I was a very good wife for him.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was because I wasn't really being honest about what I wanted. And so I knew that if I was really honest, I was afraid I'd blow up our life. And then it's always the calculation, how much are you willing to risk? What is really worth it? Like, what are you willing to split up? I
Mm.
knew I didn't want, there was no point that I was like, I am done,
Mhm.
but by the end, I felt like I can't be in this marriage. I felt like I couldn't be with anybody and not lose myself, that I'm too people pleasing and too almost overly relationally oriented
Mm.
to like kind of hold my selfhood and be in partnership.
Wow. Okay, so what was something you found yourself being sneaky about in order to get some of your needs met, but avoid conflict?
Well, I wouldn't really tell him, I hope it's okay that I'm gonna tell the story that it was in this New York Times article.
Of course, yeah.
I had decided to buy a dog and I had like, it was decided in my mind. Like, I had
Mhm.
researched, I had been talking to breeders, I had done a spreadsheet about what I wanted. I was looking at the shelters. I was like looking for a dog. And I like just didn't tell him. Like, I was very far down the process, and I knew he didn't want a dog. Like, I knew it was gonna be a fight. And so then it becomes a
Yeah.
thing, and clients say this to me constantly, and I'm sure they do to you. It's like, I don't know why I'm not telling him, because I'm going to have to tell him, right? Like, we're not gonna just show up with a dog. So I guess it wouldn't be like lying. It would be kind of holding off, holding off, holding off. A lot of things in the background happening in order to
Mhm.
kind of build my case. And then
Yeah.
something would be sort of sprung on him in a way that isn't like, when I talk to couples all the time, and I think this is going to be the next book, I always talk about like, what's a collaborative relationship? Like, how do you collaborate with your partner? And I was not being collaborative. I was like kind of going along, but then feeling in kind of a teenage rebellious way, like, I'm just going to do whatever. And I feel like in smaller ways, I
Mhm.
wasn't like buying a ton of crazy things, but I just wasn't like sharing how, or when we decided where my son was going to go to college, I had this very specific idea of what was going to happen. And he just
Mhm.
wasn't invited along. I was just sort of like, I'm taking care of it. I got it. I got the kids. I got, like, this is my kind of domain, in a way that was kind of shutting him out, I think. And I was feeling very
Mm.
lonely and resentful.
Ooh, yeah, it seems like it's so nuanced with something like that, like with college, where it's like I think Ames and I fell into that too when my oldest son was getting ready to, like, figure out what he was gonna do after high school, and, like, I tend to be much more of a project manager with a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of like researching and talking to people. And so part of it was just I was doing more of that. And so then it made sense that it made sense in my mind at least that like Ames didn't know everything that was going on there. But then I think as I look back on it, I think this can happen in a lot of domains where it's like, if I'm project managing it, then I can sort of like not acknowledge to myself, I'm also sort of keeping some of the information private because I like where it's going, or like I like having, I guess, more control.
More controlling because you're gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And then you stay in the driver's seat. And I definitely did. I did a lot of that. I mean, how it would look for me is like with the college example is my son had a really difficult high school experience with COVID, blah, blah, like so many kids did.
Yeah.
And then he's neurodiverse and very shy and introverted. And I had so many fears about just I wanted him to be successful in college. And so I felt very much like this type of school is going to be the best type of school. And like I wanted him to feel excited. So I was essentially like, whatever school you want to go to, I'm going to make it happen financially. And my husband would have been like, that's crazy. Like we have our whole, I mean, he would have been like, there's a lot of places he can go to school that he'll be happy. Like, and I just like wouldn't, and now, you know, we're paying for it and he's a junior this year and I'll be really happy not to be paying for this anymore because it's like a killer. It's so expensive.
Yeah.
But it was just like, I just really had blinders on about, it was like my point of view. I know what is best for him. I'm the one who understands. And I wasn't taking in a lot of input. And then though I would be like, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to figure it out. Don't talk to me about it, kind of. I wasn't saying that, but that was internally. And then I would be so stressed about money. And then I would be frustrated because I had so much financial stress, but he just didn't know any of it because I handle all of our money. And like, so there's another thing of being like, then everything is sort of my problem, right? Like if you're the one controlling it all, then it's like, well, I don't know, you know, you got to figure it out. And then of course that would create more distance because I would be resentful.
Yeah. So what was it that got you to the point where you were like, as difficult as this is, as vulnerable as it is, like we're going to couples therapy? And how did you find, because this is hard for therapists.
It was a killer.
Like, how did you find a therapist?
He suggested couples therapy, which was a shock. Like he had never been in individual therapy and was a little therapy adverse. Like he's very much someone who's like, I'm fine. I don't have any problems. And you're like, what? You know, but so he hadn't been in therapy. And then when I'm looking for a couples therapist, it was really hard because all the therapists I think are great. I know, you know, and so I couldn't. It was very hard to find someone. And then the person we found was very helpful. And then my husband ended up seeing him individually afterwards, which I think is really useful. Like some people say not to do that. I think it's amazing, like for the therapist to really have, especially if someone's not super verbal about what's going on, to have met the wife, understand the relationship dynamics. I think that can be a great way to start individual therapy. And that worked out great. But when we found him, and it was, I trained with Terry Real, and so did this person. And so we found him on like a list or something, but he's very crazy. Like he's super wacky. And so I can't really like just recommend him openly because I think some people are like, I think he's retired now anyways, but I think people are like, whoa, like, but that really worked for us. I don't know. There was some kind of freedom. You know, he's in his 80s and would just say whatever came into his mind in a way that was kind of refreshing, and it totally worked for us. So, and it was very challenging. He would really challenge me, which I was surprised because you feel like as a therapist, you kind of, you know how it works, you know, there's tricks. And so, but he was great about being like, kind of not having it. So he was really good for us.
Yeah. And as a therapist, you can feel like, especially if your partner hasn't done as much therapy, like you can feel like I really know myself. Like I've already challenged myself. I've like plumbed the depths. I'm good at this.
Totally.
Like, yeah. What kinds of things would you hear from him, from the therapist, that were kind of like, ouch, or like, yeah, I do need to hear this?
I was kind of making the case that I had disappeared in this marriage. Like I took responsibility for insofar as I was like, I did this. I subsumed myself into this relationship. When I met my husband, he's like 4 years older than me, which when you're young feels like I mean, I was 24 when we met, and I had just moved to New York City. I was just like young, and I was enthralled. I was enthralled. Like the way you want to feel like with somebody, or when you decide to get married to somebody, like I felt that way. Like I was just like so just into him, and very quick to kind of, I feel like, subsume myself into his world.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we got older, it was that just sort of became a habit. And I just kept like orienting myself around him, even as like kids, as we had children. And even for a long time, we were both he's very successful. Does amazing, important, like social justice work. And so I was very impressed by him. I was very much like the supporter. And then I just never moved out of that role into being, or I didn't feel like I did. He did. And I think people around me would have been like, that's not really how we saw you, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I just thought he was like better than me, like when we were first together. And then as I got older and as I started really investing in my own career and things shifted, I still felt like I was in this like kind of one down position. And the therapist said, I was like, I have disappeared in this relationship and I don't know how to find myself in the relationship. And the therapist goes, you did this. You put yourself in a one down position. He did not do that. That is not what I'm hearing. You did this. And I was like, wow, I probably did. I was like, whoa, that wasn't what I was expecting. Cause I was like, well, he can be arrogant or, things like that. But he was like, that's not what I'm seeing. So, and I think he's right.
Okay. Like, so hearing that you did this, like I could imagine feeling defensive. I could imagine feeling kind of like, I don't know, couples therapy. It's so exposing.
Yeah.
So I could imagine feeling a lot of things like in my nervous system hearing that. What did you do with that? Did you find it empowering? Did you feel defensive?
I think it rang true. So I didn't respond, I don't think, defensively. I think I felt like, how I took it was like, I've written a story where I am the victim, which allows me to be passive in this relationship that I'm saying is very important to me. And that's a fucked up choice. Like if you want to, like, that's not fair. I mean, it's almost like, I hadn't thought of this till right now, but it was almost like, I almost was like using my like therapeutic, like empathic skills to create a narrative. It really wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair to my husband. It was like making him into kind of a monster, not a monster, but the most negative certain parts of his personality, and then excusing my feeling of sort of hopelessness or helplessness within the relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And then I'm just thinking about, like, I've been in couples therapy where I ended up later on, like, getting certain feedback from a therapist, and then later on feeling like I was really challenging myself to take the feedback in and to like work on myself. And that's what you're there to do. And then some of the feedback later on feeling like, you know what? I think that part was bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I think I should have pushed back on what that therapist said. And so it's just like I'm thinking about that, like that moment in couples therapy where you kind of have to figure out, is this a moment where I'm like I think you just said, yeah, you definitely said it rang true. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was something true about it in your system, even if it was challenging. And we're just in this position. I know you feel it all the time as a therapist, I'm sure, like where your clients are in this position where it's like as the therapist, you have a megaphone
Mm-hmm.
and it's like that discernment process for the client of like, does this ring true? Or is this a moment to like push back against the therapist?
Yeah. I think it helped a lot that I was in therapy with, I am still
Mm.
I have a long-term therapist who like, I consider my relationship with him one of the most important relationships of my
Mm.
life, right? Like a
Mm.
total life-changing relationship for me. And so having that at the same time, I think he would definitely, he's a very like kind of brusque, straight ahead person. And he would definitely be like, oh, that's crazy, or so I was processing it with someone else who
Yeah.
is a couples therapist. He's a great couples therapist. But I also will say that I actually did stand up for myself in that therapy room more than I had before in a way I was
Mm.
really, really proud of. Like,
Mm.
I remember one of the first sessions we were on Zoom, and I'm always like, when I meet people, I try and be really warm and I'm expressive, and I can imagine a scenario where I would have wanted to be like likable to
Yeah.
the therapist. And as like the first session was going by, I was suddenly like, oh, I'm coming across really cold. Like I'm being
Mm.
very cold. And
Mm.
and then I was like, well, maybe that's really good for me. Like maybe that's okay. Like I'm mad. That's why we're here, So maybe it's
Yeah.
okay not to be the most likable person. And he said something, and I wish I could remember what it was, but I remember him saying something, and it's just hard to overstate how out of character this is for me to do to someone in his role. But he said something, and I go, no, 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 absolutely not. Like I just like, and he and my husband, they were both like, whoa. But then I felt like, oh, that was. At first, I was like, "Oh my god, this guy's gonna think I'm like a monster," and then I was like, "No, that was actually really good for me. That was a real growing edge. Like it wasn't true what he was saying. I did not have to tolerate it. I did not have to come in nice. And he was definitely the kind of therapist who just like throws a bunch of stuff against the wall and kind of sees what sticks. So he could take it, right? He wasn't
Yeah.
like, I'm running the show around here. He like started laughing and was like, whoa, okay, I got it. Okay. But so it was
Oh,
fine,
that's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's like a great way to figure out, like, can I push back in this therapy situation and be accepted and be respected? Or is the therapist going to be like, I have to know best? And so,
Yeah, he wasn't
yeah.
he wasn't like that,
Yeah.
yeah, which is good.
For real. As you've been listening to me talking to my wonderful guest, maybe you've been thinking that they might be the right next practitioner for you. You can find their contact information in the show notes, and I'll be saying it at the end of this episode out loud. I cannot promise you they have an opening, of course. They are really good, so don't get mad at me if they don't. I'm also a healer. I help people who are estranged from a parent or caregiver and other folks who are ready to do some really big healing. I use brain spotting and parts work to get at the root of emotional pain. If you have the feeling I might be the right next practitioner for you or for someone you love, go to anniezam.com and learn more about working with me. Okay, so then as you're kind of taking that in, like, hey, you did this and that rang true. I can see too, like, I mean, and this is all in your book, how one can do this. But it's like you also then, I'm imagining then you got to try, okay, so if I undo this, how will my husband respond? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I am not being subsumed anymore, and if I am like coming forward more and collaborating more, like then how will that go? So yeah, how did that go?
Yeah. It was really, really great. And
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't like retaliatory the way that sometimes you see people in couples therapy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that what he walked in there with that he had to work on was being very, very defensive and kind of shutting things down and like having
Mm-hmm.
a we're both kind of conflict averse, but his defensiveness would like he'd come back so hard that I would back off.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was definitely what he needed to work on in that. But he wasn't like, well, fuck you too. He was like, oh my God. Like I thought I had this marriage and she's really unhappy and I'm not gonna let this die. Like, I'm gonna fight for this and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
try and make the changes that she's saying she needs. And so it's hard to overstate that. And sometimes I think I got a lot of people who reached out after the New York Times essay was published, and I would hear them talk about their spouses. And I would be like, oh, no, he doesn't care. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's not
Mm-hmm.
invested enough to, like, marriage is hard anyways. Like the best
Yeah.
marriages are you walk in every day and you try and give them your A game. Not
Yeah.
every minute, but a lot of the time, right? We can't just give like the scraps of ourselves to our partners and expect to have a fulfilling, rich relationship. But it's a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of presence and attention. I actually hate it when people talk about marriage being hard work. So I want to scratch that. It's that it takes loving attention. It takes
Yeah.
focus. And some
Yeah.
people don't want to like move the bright light of their focus. And they want it to be like done and in the background and not think about it anymore. And I think a lot of men were socialized to believe that that's kind of how it goes. Like you woo, you you lock it down, and then you're done, right? If we're
Yeah.
going to be really gendered about it. And he was not like that. Like he wasn't like that at all. He was the
Mm.
opposite. He was very much like, there's no way I'm letting this happen quietly. Like I will do what I need to do. And because of that, I feel like we turned things around pretty quickly and then both did a
Mm.
lot of work on ourselves. But I feel like I feel like we were both willing to work really, really hard at it. And I think what can be sad for some people is they're not with someone who's willing to work really hard at it. They're with someone who might show up to a couple sessions, might kind of phone it in, but aren't going to make that kind of effortful focus to make things better and to really work
Yeah.
on what they need to work on. Like my husband now, and this endears me to him so much. Like no matter how mad I am, if we're having a thing and I'm saying something, he'll like take a minute and he'll say, okay, I'm taking a minute to work really hard at not being defensive. Like, how can you not love that? Like when somebody says that. And so I love that. I'm like, okay, thank you. Take a minute. Take as much time as you need. Yeah. So that then we can kind of come at it. It's like, yeah, just say that part out loud. Show your work. Take a
Mm.
minute to let the defensiveness like die down and then decide what you want to say.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And like him, if he was a different kind of person, I'm just imagining like he could have been like, yeah, you did this to yourself. So this is on you, instead of like, okay, it matters to me that you're unhappy. This is now ours to figure out.
Oh, completely. Yeah. No, he
Yeah.
wasn't at all like you did this. He definitely felt like it was co-created
Mm-hmm.
and I could see where he like kind of went astray in what, like, he had his parents divorced when he was very young. It doesn't have a relationship with his mother, which is a very sad story that I'm sure you know all about because you're parental estrangement and whatnot. And then with his dad and his stepmom, he kind of, that was the only like really healthy relationship that he felt like he was exposed to. But they have this very traditional relationship where he's like the great man, right? And I mean, I'm very close to both of them and I love them, but it's just not a marriage that I was going to have, right? Like, this is not what I wanted. And I think he was thinking like, we're good, we're happy because we're like them. And I was like, but I'm not happy. Like, I'm a completely different person. And I think he was able to really feel like, oh yeah, you are totally. No, I feel my mother-in-law listens to this. I'll feel terrible because I love her so much, and they have a wonderful marriage. It's just not for me, right? It's just very different than what I wanted. And so he was like, "Oh, we are operating under a totally different view, even of what's desirable, and that we need to learn to create a marriage that." To me feels like reciprocal and collaborative and egalitarian, and where you take turns and you both invest and everybody's needs have a seat at the table, you know. So it was, yeah, we had to mix it up.
Yeah. You talk in your book about like there are deal breaker issues and there are grappling issues.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about that, like how, like, it makes me think of how, like, the grappling issues, meaning like something that, well, what I took from it was like something that's a big deal and it's like gonna take a lot to figure it out throughout your relationship, but it's something you can live with. Like, it's a conflict you can live with. Whereas a deal breaker is something, obviously, like, it's, if you can't resolve it, that's not going to work for the relationship. So, like, for you, I know that you live in 2 different places right now, right?
Yeah.
So that's like a grappling issue for the 2 of you? It's like location?
What I would say is, it's a grappling issue. And so we're super lucky. I understand that this isn't like a really workable solution for a lot of people. It works great for us. So we're in St. Paul, Minnesota, and in Brooklyn, New York. And what I imagine is Brooklyn will always be like a home base. He really wants to be in New York. My family and my parents and my sister are here, and my daughter wanted to go to high school here. And so that's what's happening. And then that will change, I think, as the kids. I can imagine, you know, I don't know. I hope if both kids coordinate and like move to Nashville or something when they're in their 30s and having families or whatever, then I'll be like, okay, second place is Nashville. You know, I didn't want to be in New York full time anymore. And I had a deep yearning to be closer to my family of origin. So yeah, this was a grappling issue. And then I was like, we have to figure something else out at this juncture. And we were able to, which sometimes I still can't believe we do it. It feels like miraculous to me that we have worked it out. But as a therapist, what I see all the time is women especially, trying to make a deal breaker a grappling issue and not like facing the fact that this is a deal breaker that you're trying to make work. You're twisting yourself in knots, trying to make, trying to make it okay that you're not having children, or opening the relationship or not opening the relationship, or, like, sometimes it's very fundamental. So this was something we grappled with forever, where to live. And now we're doing this. So as long as it works, it's great. It's working right now.
Was that part of going to, like, did couples therapy make some of that possible too, being able to collaborate on that?
We weren't talking about that at all at that time. I think I got better at being a little bit more insistent about how important it was to me. And when I sort of came up with an idea, I think it was actually really painful, hard. I'm not going to minimize. It was like coming to this was very hard, and it's still kind of thought of as experimental. But I think I was much more like, this matters to me. Like, I want to do something different, and I can see that this would work. So
yeah.
I want to add just that it's hard in a long relationship because you change, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's not like I didn't want to live in Minnesota when we got married. I was so happy to be in New York. It wasn't until I had kids and whatnot. Like we change. And if we change, then the agreements in the relationship change. And so whether the relationship can tolerate the changing agreements isn't always going to be possible. Sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. But when people say, oh, we had a great marriage for like 10 years and then we didn't, I believe them. I think sometimes people think,
Yeah.
no, but I believe that. I think we change. And so maybe the relationship can't grow with you forever. And that's, I think we should just like understand that we're humans and people usually are trying their best and some things have to end and that is fine and not be seen as this like big failure or whatnot. Like it's hard to have
Mm-hmm.
a long, happy marriage.
Yeah.
It's lucky.
It's really
But,
lucky. Yeah. Me and Ames have been together for 25 years. And like, we wouldn't, like, we've talked about this, like, neither one of us would want to date the version of us that we were then.
Mhm.
Right. And so, like, I feel like there's a lot of choice we do get in this to like grow together and to like make
Sure.
choices that are going to make it a lot more likely that we can
Yeah, I
grow
agree with
together.
that.
But there is, I think, so much luck. Like, so much luck that like we keep having like the same or similar enough priorities and like
Mhm.
places that we want to grow, explore into. That, yeah, I can totally see that too, that somebody could have a 10 or a 20-year successful relationship that ends. Like, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because a grappling issue becomes a deal breaker or someone changes dramatically. Someone makes a decision that is sobriety or, some things that just takes them on a different path. I do think
Mm-hmm.
you're setting yourself up if you're with someone who has similar values, right? And, of
Mm-hmm.
course. And values, I think, are usually more durable than just sort of like having things in common, having other
Mm-hmm.
things in common. And so if there's, like a sense of adventure has always been a shared value. And so the idea of like, let's just do something totally different. Like, let's do something that everyone is going to tell us we're crazy. And for sure, everybody thought we were getting divorced. And I would say to people, this isn't a problem. This is a solution to a problem. So this is
Yeah.
better. Everybody just chill out. But yeah. So I think the values thing is big.
And why did they think that? Like, because you end up not getting to spend as much time together?
I'm kind of joking. I don't know for sure. Nobody like our kids didn't think that.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody who is fully bought in.
Yeah, maybe like people 2 layers out.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
think it was an odd, like, we spend about half the week together, which is totally fine for me. And I feel like he always traveled for work a lot. He's always worked a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's nice. I took him to the airport this morning. I'll pick him up on Friday. It's like, it's my daughter and I will watch, like reruns of The Good Place and eat pasta on the couch. Like, it's great. I love it. I'm all for it.
I
So
want to come. That sounds really fun.
it's very nice. It's very cozy. We joke if everyone's been home, all 4 of us for a long time. And then my son goes back to college and my husband goes to New York, my daughter and I will be like, the interlopers are gone. We're back eating pasta and watching TV from the early aughts. So yeah, it's fun.
That's amazing. How do you feel about, in terms of secure attachment, when you look at your relationship with your husband now, do you feel like you're more securely attached than before couples therapy? Or is that kind of not really a thing that changed?
I think more securely attached in that I would say, and he would agree with this. He said this one time in therapy, and it was
Mm-hmm.
really powerful. He said, you know what I'm thinking all the time. Like there's nothing kind of going on for me that I don't share. And I always feel he said to the therapist, he was like, she has whole worlds inside her mind that I have no access to. And that I couldn't believe he even knew that, right? Like that was so much more insightful about me than I would have given him credit for. And I did. Definitely had whole worlds inside my head that were private. I mean, and it's okay, of course, to have a private inner life, but he didn't know a lot of what was going on with me. And he would be like, I find out stuff when we're at like a dinner party and you're talking to somebody else. And I had just become I was just keeping a lot to myself, kind of too much. And so I was creating a lot of distance. And I don't feel that way now at all. Like that is such a big difference. I don't, you're closer if you're sharing your inner world with your person. And I can't even think of like, I just talk much more freely about what's kind of happening for me. We just talk about stuff. I had almost gotten into the default of not sharing things, like being very interested in what was going on with him, but not sharing that much. And I would say that is totally rebalanced and I share a lot. And so then, of course, I feel much closer because of that.
And then he does too, getting to know your inner world.
Yeah.
Do you think that came from childhood patterns that you kind of kept things more private?
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have that. I really share.
That's good.
But
Ames really knows you. That's good.
But Ames has some of that. And so that's really like interesting and sweet and inspiring. That because I feel like we're in that transition now of them sharing more and more. Any advice for someone whose partner is starting to share more?
Just be interested.
Yeah.
And I think just be interested. And this is what I always tell my clients of teenagers. And I try really hard to do this with my daughter, but I think it goes for partners too, is like, you don't want to overreact or underreact to anything that is said,
Yes.
You don't want to scare off somebody who's just starting to open up. And I also think if you aren't used to sharing, you worry about being misunderstood and saying things like sloppily. And so I think this idea of having someone who's listening to you is going to hang with you, even if you don't say it, even if it doesn't come out perfectly, I think that can be valuable.
Beautiful. Do you feel like your work as a couples therapist changed in any like subtle ways after being a client?
I'm sure it did. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly. Although I do believe that I don't believe. Okay, so I was a therapist and I had been on and off in individual therapy, but I hadn't had like a really deep experience. And I think I harbored this like secret thought that therapy didn't really work for me, which I actually think is like kind of arrogance, right? But I think that like kind of a lot of therapists are like that. Like they don't open up enough.
Oh yeah, especially the longer we do it. Yeah.
And then I think when I started with my therapist, who I talked about earlier, it was like how I was as a therapist got so much better and I really think we cannot go deeper than we have gone in our own therapy. Like they will feel it in us and they'll kind of titrate their reactions to not go deeper than they feel like we can go. Right. So even if we think we're doing this great work, I don't buy it. So if a therapist is like, yeah, therapy doesn't really work for me, in my mind, I'm like, no, that's not true. You haven't done it, but that's not true. And I imagine the same thing happened in couples therapy, that I was available for more than I had been available before, because how could that not be true? Like that just follows, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I could imagine you already had all the skills. It might not even be that tangible what changed, but like just some kind of openness, willingness. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you're going to write another book on
I think so, yeah.
being collaborative?
I turned the book in, Annie, and I was like, I am never doing that again. Like, the editing process was so, I mean, I don't even know why. Like, I can't even remember why I was reacting so strongly, but it was very like a dark night of the soul. Like, what am I doing? And then, so when I turned it in, I was like, never, ever again. And then after I started promoting it, I was like, I could probably do it again. I was like that. It's a lot of learning. You know, my mom was a teacher and she would always say, like, you can't only teach a year because the first year is so hard, but there's so much learning that you benefit from than the rest of your whole career. And that's how I feel about a book. I feel like that would really be a waste of a lot of learning to not write another book. And this book is so squarely aimed at women. And I would like to write something a little bit more like holistic for a couple. Yeah. Like about
That's
collaborative
so exciting.
relationships.
That's really exciting. And you write all the time anyway, right? Like whether you're writing a book or not writing a book. Yeah.
I mean, I'm in and out. I'm writing a lot more when I'm writing a book. And, but I like it. I like the process. Once I'm into it, I have all the like dread of the blank page that everybody has. But I had always wanted to write a book. I'm proud to have done so. It's a good thing. It's always a good thing to do something you've always wanted to do. And so, yeah. So we'll see if I have a second one in me. I haven't started it yet, but I have ideas.
Yeah. And it's wonderful. And like, as I said, I read it in my ears, like audio. And so I got to have Tonya's voice in my ears, which was amazing. And it's full of stories and examples, which I find so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so highly, highly recommend.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Annie. And your programs really helped me. Do you know, I don't know if I told you this story, but when we did the retreat with Rebecca,
yeah,
I had a little notebook that everybody had. And I found that notebook while I was writing the book, and it write a book called Be Difficult. And my book was originally called Be Difficult. They made me change the name, the publisher did. But it was like, I was like, wow, I had always had this, like, this little seed was planted. So, and when I looked at that notebook, I had like done everything I said I was going to do in the notebook. Like, it's so wild how powerful writing things down can be. So it's really cool and special. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Like you definitely, it was clear that you had something in you that was going to come out.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tonya.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. I was looking forward to this one because it's like hanging out with a friend.
That's right. All right. I'll see you for pasta and the good place soon.
Anytime you want to drop by. Okay. Good to see you.
You too. Learn more about Tonya at tonyalester.com. I want to thank Ames Palms for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, please do a couple of things. Share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That is absolutely the most important way we reach more people. And if you haven't already, please hit follow and give us 5 stars. That is so helpful to this podcast. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.